everybody, it's Dana and welcome back to my YouTube channel and blog. Today I am playing with the Hero Arts October 2020 My Monthly Hero Kit. This kit is full of ornament happiness and I can't wait to show you what we're going to be making today. We're going to end up with 2 cards with 1 panel. So there you have it. This is going to be my first 2 Christmas cards. So I went ahead and I trimmed down some pieces of cardstock here, and these are all Hero Arts colors. I have Mist, Nautical, and Cherry, and then my card base is Dove White from Hero Arts. So I'm lining up or getting the design per se that I want on my card panel. So I'm going to do the Mist and then the nautical and then the red stripes. Now again, this is going to allow me to have 2 cards out of just this 1 panel. So now since I have the design kind of laid out the way I want it, I know what colors I want next to what. So now we can get busy putting down these stripes. Now this kit is full, I mean full of so much inspiration, and I can't wait for you to see some of the cards that the design team members made. I mean, they are absolutely fantastic creators and I love creating with them every month. So I started off here first with my nautical blue, and I'm using precision glue here so I can butt those pieces right next to each other. I don't want to see any white in between the stripes. Now I do think it would look pretty cool by keeping in some of the white, but then I have to measure and do all that craziness, and Dana Joy does not like doing that. So I'll next come in with that cherry cardstock. Now I'm going to do this all the way down the card, and now we have it completed. Now I want to bring in an ornament die that is also in that Hero Arts My Monthly Kit. And I left a little space for me to add a sentiment. Now once I die cut this out of this panel, I'm going to end up having 2 projects. I'm going to have the ornament that's been cut out, and then I'm going to also have this piece here. So that's why it said 2 cards, 1 panel, right? So I used some purple tape to hold that ornament into place, and then I can run this through my die cutting machine. Now the reason I'm cutting this is because I want this panel here to be a shaker card. So now I have this opening here for my ornament, and now voila, I have another ornament. This ornament could be used on our second card. So again, a 2 for 1 with this card today. So now since I have that cut out, I do want to go ahead and add in my sentiment. So I'm going to grab my stamp set. Now when we get the stamp sets, they're like prototypes. So we don't have like the black outline so you guys can see what everything is. But trust me, you will have it on yours. So as you can see, we have a ton of images in this kit, several sentiments for you to totally build up some beautiful holiday cards. I'm going to use one of the sentiments that I feel fits appropriately in that corner, and I'm going to stamp it right there. Now I could stamp it on the shaker Phillip piece, but I didn't want to do that this time. I wanted to leave a little bit of an open area on this card for the sentiment to kind of stand out on its own. I have everything in my mini Misty, and I'll place that in there and make sure that my sentiment is straight before I end up stamping, because we did a lot of work here, you guys, cutting out all those pieces of paper and then gluing it down. I do not want to redo this. Once I have that lined up where I want it, I'm going to grab my navy ink for this. This is Hero Arts ink. And I want to do it in navy. Now, I know that these are not, quote, traditional holiday colors. But remember, when you're making a card, you can make it any color your little heart is content with. Keep that in mind. We don't always have to use the traditional reds and greens, or the red, greens, and gold, the red, greens, and silver. Every year I make a card or several that are non-traditional Christmas colors. And what is so great about this stamp set this month is that the choices of yours of everything that you have in that kit. So keep that in mind. Don't be afraid to do non-traditional colors. Now for my background, I want to have that cherry red inside the ornament. But I don't want the ornament to be flat. So I'm going to grab myself a pencil and I'm going to trace the ornament right on to that red cardstock. So this way I know wherever I want to stamp, I know I'm going to get it in the middle of the ornament when I lay the top panel back down. So in this kit, they have some great little images, and I'm going to grab several of the snowflakes. Now you get some Christmas trees in here, you get a bell, you get a bird, you get some reindeers, you get Santa. So you have a ton of things that you can add to your cards. I'm going to stamp this in the unicorn white ink from Hero Arts, and I'm going to make sure I only have to stamp right into the ornament that I traced on there. Remember, I traced the ornament on there, so I don't need to guess or wonder like, where am I placing these snowflakes? I know exactly where they're going to be placed, so when I put the card together, voila, we're going to be spot on. So I'm using one of the larger snowflakes, and that is just to fill in most of the area. Not all of it, but most. Now I'm going to switch to the smaller snowflake and fill in those little gaps that I have. Now I could have made it really, really tight by just using the larger snowflakes, but I thought having a nice variation, one in designs of snowflakes, because these snowflakes are not identical, it also gives me the opportunity to have large ones and small ones. So once I get just that area that I need filled in with my snowflakes, I know I'm going to be good to go. Now I think that's enough. Excuse my head. I think that's enough. And now I know that I'm going to wait just a couple seconds and let this dry back. This is pigment ink, so it stays wet a little bit longer. So as you can see, I stamped right inside. You can still see the pencil lines there. Now when I added this over, I'm like, I think my snowflakes are now competing with my stripes. So I need to tone those down. A nice way to tone down a design is to pull out some vellum. The vellum is still going to allow me to see the snowflakes, but they're not going to be really competing with my stripes. In my head and in my sketch, I was like, yes, snowflakes and stripes, we're on it. But now actually seeing it on the card, I'm like, the snowflakes were a little much. So I'm just going to trim down some vellum. This is Hero Arts vellum, and it's a great weight vellum. And then I can place that onto the back of my card. And this is actually going to start the shaker portion of my card as well. So when I bring in the snowflakes, you see the snowflakes, they're happily dancing in the background, but they are definitely not competing with my stripes. So just keep that in mind. If you end up having a design and you're like, it's too bright, like when you put your sentiment on, or it's just not working right for you, grab yourself some vellum and tone that look down. I guarantee you it works every single time like a charm. Now I did use liquid adhesive here, but you're seeing once I place down my vellum, I'm pushing out away from my ornament, so none of that glue gets inside of the vellum. That's just another tip too. Now if I bring this over, now I know exactly where my sequins or my filler bits are going to go, because again, they're right in the middle where all the snowflakes. So this here is some sequins from Hero Arts, and I'll make sure to link all the products I use for this card down in this description box. So now it's time to make the shaker part. I like doubled up foam tape. This allows my shaker to shake. Sometimes if you only do one layer and you get your sequins in there and you go to shake your card and you're like, why is it not shaking? It's probably because you don't have enough room from your top panel to your bottom panel. So just keep that in mind. You want to make sure that you leave enough room to have your shaker shake. Now, if you don't want that, then one layer of foam tape and you're good. I kind of like my stuff to shake, just a tad bit. Now, once I doubled up, I did cut my foam tape down the middle, which allows me to have more to use, and then it's not so thick on my card. I also like to remove the backer on both sides because it allows me the flexibility now to bend that foam tape. So I'm just going to quickly go all the way around, trying to stay tight to the opening, but not too tight. And then whatever's left, I can use my X-Acto knife and trim that away. Now I am trimming pretty close so none of the shaker pieces are going to pop outside or leak, let's say, outside of my ornament. Now since I have that done, that looks pretty good. I'll place it back over. We can still see that hint of those snowflakes, and now I can start adding in all the sparkly bits. Now you could, if you wanted to, you could have just put acetate on there and then just let the snowflake shine. I just thought it was a little bit too busy for me. And I also kept my sequins white because they match the snowflake. So there's nothing really competing inside of my shaker card. So I'm going to go ahead and spread that out. Excuse my hair. You see all that lovely gray? Yes, that's called pandemic hair. And I just gave up on coloring my hair. I love my hair, and I think I'm just going to embrace my natural beauty into 2021. So I'll place that right on top. I'm kind of like making sure I get right over that. And then I can press down. And then our shaker card is done. Look how pretty. And you can still see the snowflakes. So even though all of the sequins will fall to the bottom, you can still see the snowflakes when it's all said and done. Now I just need to go ahead and trim off all of the excess that's left. Now remember, I had cut down that foam tape into thinner strips. So now this gives me the opportunity to put this at the top and the bottom of this card panel. And the reason you want to do that is because if you just glue this on, your top and your bottom is going to sag, and you never want a saggy card. It looks like a bad baby diaper. You never want your cards to sag. So I trimmed down some more smaller slivers of that double-sided foam tape, and then I can go ahead and even off the card. Because remember, we have foam under the red part, so we just want to make sure that everything is even when we put this onto our card panel. Now I know when I set this down on my card panel, I'm not going to have a saggy card. I'm going to put this onto a simple white card base, so there's no competing here. And I'm going to grab my scoreboard on this one. And this is going to be a standard A2 card, which is 4 1/4 by 5.5. I'll go ahead and score that and then use my bone folder. I cannot find my good one. I know it's sitting here on my desk laughing at me somewhere, but that's okay. I'll find it and scold it a little bit later. Now since I have my card base down, I'm going to add myself some liquid glue in the middle, and then I'm also going to add it to those little bits of foam tape that I have, just to make sure I give myself a tad bit of wiggle room when I go to place this down onto my card panel. Again, don't mind my head. A lot of the times I forget like how close my camcorder hangs from the ceiling. So sometimes I forget like when I bend over my desk. I'm going to be showing you guys the top of my head. But there you have it. All right, so look how gorgeous this shaker card is. Now, I did realize that, see that little top part there? I want to cover that up on my shaker card. So I went ahead and I grabbed myself some gold glitter because we just want to add a touch of whimsy to this, but we don't want this to start competing. I do like the ornament that I cut out, not having this part, but I felt like I needed to close up the top of my ornament. Now I went ahead and trimmed that down, but now I'm just going to grab my scissors and just go around like the two notches that are on already on the die, and just kind of go around those notch parts, and that's going to help me just fill in the top portion of my little ornament here. So once I have that trimmed down with my scissors, I can go ahead and use some liquid glue here, and I'll pop these down right onto that vellum. And now this card is going to be almost done. I say almost because every time I finish a card, I'm like, yep, I'm done. And then I'm like, it's missing something. And what is it usually missing? It's usually missing sequence for me. Usually missing some sequence. So without trying to compete with anything else on the card, I'm going to just grab a few of the sequins that I used already inside the card. Because again, I don't want anything really competing too much with my stripes. And I'll just add them on the outside. So I will make sure once again to leave everything in the description box below of what I used on my card today. And I cannot wait to see what you guys come up with this kit. Now, once this card is done, remember, it's a 2-for-1 here. So we're going to start working on that second card. I do like odd numbers of sequins or embellishments that I put in my card. So I'm going to have 2 on my left panel and 3 on my top panel. And now this card can set aside and we can work on our last one. Now this one's going to be really, really clean and simple, you guys. I do have my Dove cardstock, the same cardstock I used for my previous card. And this is also going to be a standard A2 card, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Now, if you are new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified when I have more videos up for you. The holidays are coming. I always do a card series for the holidays. So watch out for that announcement over on my Instagram and on my blog. And we'll share some time this year, especially this year, making some holiday cards together. All right, so for my sentiment, I didn't want to stamp it on the card. I actually wanted to stamp it on my ornament. I think this is just a really, really pretty way to dress up an ornament. So I used one of the sentiments out of the October 2020 My Monthly Hero Kit, and I'm going to heat emboss this. So first I used my embossing buddy, and now I'm coming in with my embossing and watermark ink. Now, if you don't know what this ink is, it's just the clear ink, and it allows you to put embossing powder onto your projects, or you can just use it as a simple watermark on your card. I like using it sometimes as a watermark, so it's just a nice design in the background, and it's really not competing with anything. So I did make sure to stamp that twice because we do have some grooves on where the papers match up. So I wanted to make sure that I had a great impression. Now I'm going to use some white embossing powder to sprinkle on to my sentiment. Now I did have some embossing powder that stuck, but do not fear. All you have to do is grab a dry paintbrush, a dry one here, and just whisk away the embossing powder that you do not want to heat emboss. Now also make sure to heat up your gun, and heat up your gun well before you bring it to your embossing piece. This way it speeds up the time that it takes for your embossing powder to melt, and it also helps from your project bowing too much from having so much heat. And also make sure to keep that gun moving while you're doing it and you're just not sitting in one place. So how pretty is that cute little ornament? I think it looks perfect on this clean and simple card. And I do not want to add anything else to this. Now, I thought about this after the fact, and I wish I had thought about it sooner. I could have made this a card that somebody actually could have hung from their tree if I would have used like vellum or like a low tack tape and on the inside of the card, you know, told the recipient like, hey, you can take this off and hang this on your tree. But when I was making this, I totally forgot that step because, you know, my big old dandy roll of 3M foam tape was sitting next to me. So I was like, yeah, let's just go ahead and pop this on a card this way. But in hindsight, I think I would love for a person to have this ornament that they can hang in their craft room, or they can literally hang on their Christmas tree. Now I'm going to use the lines on my grid mat to help me line up my ornament. And again, this is a very clean and simple card. So whatever ornament that you make in your first panel, die cut it out so you can get a 2-for-1 out of this. Super, super easy to do. Now I do feel like I need to add a bow to this. So I just grabbed me some red and white striped twine. Again, keeping with the striped feel here. Now, I'm a horrible bow maker, so yes, I'm going to let you look at me trying to make this bow. For some reason, by the grace of higher powers, I was able to get this done, and we'll go around. That never happens, you guys. Like, ever happens. But today, I had my good vibes with me and my crystals and my Jesus. And it worked out great. So I pulled them to a nice length on each bow itself. And now all I have to do is grab my adhesive and then place this panel down. Now you guys are going to want to make sure that you hop on over to the Hero Arts blog, as we have a blog hop going on, and we also have so much inspiration. I'm going to grab my tweezers and hold that bow in place just until it dries. And it's not going to take long. It's only like a dot of glue on the back of that. And then I can go ahead and trim down the rest of my twine. So again, if you wanted to give this ornament to somebody, you can write your information on the back, like, happy holidays, which this year's holidays are going to be totally different than any Christmas I've ever experienced because, COVID, we're in the middle of a pandemic. But I think making holiday cards this year is totally something I must do to show everybody how much I love them. All right, everybody, that is it. This is our 2 cards from the October 2020 My Monthly Hero kit from Hero Arts. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. Make sure to follow me on all of my social media, and I'll see you guys back here in another video soon. Until then, stay blessed, and I will see you again. Bye-bye.